We have Laura on the line from, I think that's California. Now, she has left fundamentalist Christianity this year and is wondering how to sort of move away from that notion of the one man, one woman, and sort of grow beyond that. Laura, welcome to the show. You are live.
Thank you so much for taking my call. Nice to talk to all of you.
Welcome. Tell us some more about your journey.
So as you stated, I kind of undid my fundamentalist Christianity this year, and I'm in my early 30s and still single. And so now I find myself having to just reanalyze everything about the way I think about relationships, the way I have conceptualized dating. You know, I used to think of dating for a purpose, and the only reason that you date is because you're looking for your husband, and what kind of criteria you need to set for, you know, said husband. And now that I, you know, have eschewed a lot of the biblical values, it's sort of, I feel overwhelmed and trying to figure out, like, oh, am I poly or do I want monogamy? What does monogamy even mean? Does that mean being with one person, but maybe just having an open relationship? And I, you know, there are some things that are more solid for me, like my sexuality. Like, I definitely still feel like straight, and, you know, like, so my pronouns are still she, her, I think. But just knowing what a relationship is supposed to be now that I don't have the biblical cookie cutter sort of, you know, marry and stay together forever. It's kind of just overwhelming, and trying to figure that out, trying to figure out how much of my intrinsic ideas about relationships are biblical versus what I actually personally feel.
Yeah, it is overwhelming, right? Like, in a certain way, I kind of want to just direct you towards every episode of this show we've ever done, because, yeah, that's the whole thing.
And I do a lot of them.
Well, I certainly appreciate that, but I hear where you're coming from. You know, I met my high school sweetheart as a 15-year-old conservative Christian virgin, and we married 8 years later with those same adjectives still applying, and, you know, found myself in my mid-20s setting up a Tinder account for the first time, going, what the hell? What do we do here? And I don't know that there is anything that we could say over the course of this phone call that will make that scariness go away. But I think the most important advice that I could have received in that moment or at that time was just to remember that you've got your life back. You've got your whole life in front of you. And as much as you might feel eager and excited and maybe even a sense of like desperation and urgency to resolve this, you've got time. Every first date that you go on gets to be its own story, and those stories don't necessarily need to have a happy ending. Sometimes my best stories have a really dumb or silly or ridiculous ending, and I don't regret any of those stories. You don't have to have any of this figured out. I hear what you're saying about being straight, about being a woman, and good for you. That's probably true, and there's no need to really change that or overly test that. But you might find yourself going out on a date with somebody who doesn't look like who you imagined yourself with. You might find yourself going out on a date with a woman. You might find yourself going out on a bunch of really terrible dates and a bunch of really fun ones with people that you have no business with. And all of that is totally fine and okay. You don't owe it to anybody, not even yourself, to have this figured out. You get to just enjoy this journey. What other tips would y'all offer Laura tonight?
I think it sounds already like Laura is doing some research and reading. There's lots of books out there that might be of interest to you if you're looking into, what is monogamy and polyamory and open relationships. And one other thing that, just a practical thing, really, that I recommend to anyone who's leaving religion. Take the time to do some values clarification exercises, and that will help you kind of figure out and determine what is it that's really important to Laura. versus what is just, well, my parents or my Sunday school teacher or whatever said that was important. And so that was used to be important to me, but it's not important now. So you can find values clarification exercises all over the internet. And so I recommend doing some of those as you're exploring who you are now that you're unencumbered.
Yeah, and I'll actually mention that I have one that I put together myself based on some things that Irvin Yalom had published, and I'll make sure to have that on my website in the footnotes for this episode. So do yourself a Google, find a bunch of great resources, but that's at least one that I'll make sure to put in front of everybody. Nate, do you have anything to add here?
Of course I do. Yes, Laura, you have come so far that I just want to say you are so brave for having left that and for having challenged yourself to leave and to find the truth. And it is going to be scary, especially when you're in your 30s and don't necessarily have the experience that a secular younger person might have. But kind of like Christy said, you know, it is scary, but man, it is so exciting, you know, that you get to now decide what works for you. Like, you get to make your rules and you can play around, right? Like, you if you go on a date with a girl, or if you decide to try a poly relationship and you decide it doesn't work for you, that's okay. You might still identify as a straight person, right? Like, if you know, if you take a trip to Italy and decide that you really like it and then come back home, that doesn't make you an Italian, right? Like, you can shop around and then you can arrive at the identity that works for you and be so much happier for it. So I'm almost a little bit jealous that you get to do this journey again. It is scary, but it is super exciting, and you are very brave for having started. How does that sound to you?
That sounds great. I really appreciate it. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you calling.
Godspeed. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about before we let you go?
No, I mean, that definitely helps. And I've been reading Dr. Darrell Ray's book, Sex and God, so it's definitely been illuminating a lot of things for me too. Like that I have been trying to do research and stuff like that. So, I mean, I guess that's just the place that I'm in now, is researching and trying to figure it out. So I guess it is definitely helpful just to kind of hear that reminder that I have time, that I don't have to figure it out right now. And I guess that's also kind of where one of the spaces of my discomfort comes from, I guess, probably because I'm used to having it figured out. I'm used to knowing what I do all the time. So this is like the first time in my life where I'm kind of like, okay, I don't really know now. So
I hear that.
Time, and that's important.
Yeah, don't worry about where you end up, because ending up's not real. You know, this life you build, you're going to never stop creating it until you die, and then you won't be here to worry about it anyhow. So this is an ongoing thing, and there's no quota, there's no finish line. Just keep going. I'm so excited for you.
Thanks, Christy. Thank you, everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm excited for you too, Laura. And just as a reminder, you're reading Dr. Ray's book. He's a great resource for this kind of thing. And he's actually, I don't know if you've ever used Recovering from Religion, but you can call in or chat in or lean on us anytime that you want to. Again, like Christy said, this isn't going to just go away overnight. It's going to be a long process. Mm-hmm. So you can feel free to lean on us anytime that you like. Okay.
Sure. Thanks, Nate. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. All right. You take care of yourself.